Let's begin this review with a little thought experiment, shall we? Close your eyes, dear viewer, and imagine a teddy bear. A delightful, fluffy little chap that you've had for as long as you can remember. When you were a little kid, you'd contentedly fall asleep holding it. Then it would be the first thing you saw when you woke up each morning. It was comforting and fun, and it was always there whenever you needed it. Then, as time passed and you grew older, you began to need the bear less and less, but you could never quite bring yourself to throw it away, because every time you saw it, it brought a fond smile to your face, reminding you of the simple innocence of childhood. And you knew that one day, you'll pass that bear on to your own children, so a whole new generation can make their own happy memories with it. What a charming thought. Now imagine that some fat middle-aged dickhead comes along, spray paints political slogans all over your bear, telling you that you're a horrible person, rips the head off, and replaces it with an 18-inch black rubber dildo. And you're like, "Excuse me, sir, this doesn't seem right. Why are you doing this to my bear?" And the fat middle-aged dickhead gleefully tells you that he's actually improved your bear. In fact, it's never looked better, so stop complaining and enjoy it. Confused and upset by this, you go online to share your experience with other bear users, and suddenly you've got an avalanche of people who've never even owned a bear screaming at you that bears have always had 18-inch dildos attached to them, so why do you have a problem with it now? This is just the way bears are now, and you need to deal with it. Are you some kind of bear bigot? Are you intimidated by strong independent bears? Then, before you know it, the news media's heard about your story, and they're writing scathing articles like, "Are bear fans too entitled?" Or, "The problem with toxic bear fans." And everyone's getting angry and shouting at each other, but nobody's really listening to what's being said. Something which used to represent innocent, universal fun has become a battleground for everyone's petty hang-ups, grievances, and insecurities. Meanwhile, the fat middle-aged dickhead is busy making even more changes to your bear. Before you know it, the arms and legs have been replaced by razor blades, and he's added a big obnoxious rainbow flag to go alongside all the political slogans. In desperation, you turn to your happy childhood memories of the bear before all the improvements were made. But the fat middle-aged dickhead has even found a way to infiltrate that. His new and improved bears have been photoshopped into every family picture and every home movie that you own. There's literally no escape now. The past, present and future have been completely taken over by the fat middle-aged dickhead and his army of rainbow bears with dildos for heads. And no matter how much people hate them, they can never be unmade. Now imagine the frustration and disappointment you'd feel in this situation. Well, this is pretty much how long-time fans of Doctor Who must be feeling right now, particularly after the final episode of Season 12, The Timeless Children. Quite literally, the 60 minutes of TV that finally killed 57 years of Doctor Who. Not to mention any lingering sense of respect I might have had for the show. So, for the final time, let's jump aboard the retardus and get into this shit. So the Timeless Children kicks off straight after the events of the previous episode, where the Cybermen have been resurrected and the Master has returned. Again. Now everyone's hanging out beside a big portal leading to the remains of the Doctor's homeworld, Gallifrey. Jesus Christ, how many times is this fucking planet gonna be blown up and resurrected, only to be blown up yet again? Remember when Gallifrey was time-locked, so the writers couldn't keep going back and fucking with it? That was a nice idea. They probably should have stuck with that. Anyway, so the Doctor impersonator and her fam are there, along with the Master, who for some reason looks like a really shit version of Douglas from the IT crowds.
You bastard.
The Master forces the Doctor impersonator to go with him through the portal, leaving the others behind. Because, you know, why kill them or neutralise them in any way when you can just let them roam free and totally scupper your plans later? Fucking bell end. So the Master takes the Doctor impersonator for a nice walk through the ruined capital, and for some reason he now acts like a fucking hyperactive child with Tourette's that's just mainlined a triple espresso. Why is he so ridiculous now? The Master is supposed to be menacing and calculating. This guy's just a complete dick. Then he traps the Doctor impersonator in a big machine called the Matrix that lets him get inside her head, and apparently the process is agonizingly painful, but fuck me, you'd never know it from her reaction. Either she has an incredibly high pain threshold, or Jodie Whittaker just doesn't give a shit in this scene. I'll let you decide. Anyway, now that the Doctor impersonator is plugged into the Matrix, it's time for a little history lesson. Get your lube ready, because the big bad teddy bear's about to fuck you. We flash back to the early days of Gallifrey, before the Time Lords even existed, when a strong female explorer ventures out into the universe in search of a decent haircut. But instead, she finds a magical gateway that's been conveniently left unguarded. What's the nature and purpose of this gateway? Who built it? How does it function? What lies beyond it? I don't fucking know, because the script doesn't give a shit. What is important though is the diverse little girl who's hanging around waiting for the plot to kick in. So strong female explorer takes diverse little girl back to Gallifrey, and then she gets into a fight and falls off a cliff. But instead of dying, she regenerates into a new, equally diverse form. Wow, that's weird. Whatever does this mean? So strong female explorer studies diverse little girl by repeatedly murdering her and forcing her to regenerate. What's a lovely mother? And eventually discovers the secret to regeneration, which she uses to create the first Time Lords. And that's it, that's how they came to be. But drink her, you courageous sermonizer, I hear you say. Whatever became of the little girl in this flashback? Take a wild guess.
The child is you.
Great, so now we know where the Doctor and the Time Lords came from, how they were created, and what their true nature is. Now this is all spiffing, but just like attaching an 18-inch rubber cock to your favourite teddy bear, it does create its share of problems. See, Doctor Who is a show that's been running for more than half a century now, and while different generations of writers may have tweaked elements of its canon over the years, there were certain foundational things that gradually solidified into the category of stuff we really shouldn't fuck with. And top of the list was the Doctor's personal history. We were never told exactly how the Doctor came into being, what his childhood was like, what he did before the show began, or even his real name. Why? Because we didn't need to know. The writers were wise enough to realise that the mystery of the Doctor was way more interesting and compelling than anything they could actually come up with to explain it. All we knew for sure was that he was a Time Lord from Gallifrey who went rogue, stole a TARDIS, and went on a bunch of adventures through time and space. How and why he became the Doctor was less important than what he did afterwards. Likewise, the origins of Gallifrey and the Time Lords was kept deliberately vague for exactly the same reasons. The Time Lords were portrayed as epic, godlike beings of almost infinite power and wisdom. Where and how they started out was just another mystery for the audience to speculate over, something to fire the imagination and stir a sense of wonder. But the creative powerhouse that is Chris Chibnall was like, nah, it'll be fine. Why bother to maintain an intriguing mystery when you can just shit your own dumb, unsatisfying answer onto the screen, declare that it's a permanent part of the show's history, and totally undermine the work of entire generations of writers?
Sheer fucking hubris.
Anyway, back to whatever passes for a plot. So the Master takes a break from being a total dick to invite the Cybermen to come through the portal so he can form an alliance with them. The Cybermen are led by this absolute twat, who explains that he's got his hands on a death particle that can destroy all organic life in the universe.
No way!
Wow, really? One particle can do all that? Destroy all life in the entire universe? Like, how? How does one come by such an element? Does it occur naturally? If so, how does anything exist in the universe? Also, don't the Cybermen have living brains inside their armour? I mean, Yaz and the others are actually able to wear and move around in it, which suggests there's enough space inside for a functioning human body. At the very least, this guy has an entire fucking head inside his helmet, so releasing the death particle would almost certainly kill all the Cybermen as well. What's a genius screenplay? Great work, Chris. To be fair, the Cybermen don't exactly strike me as the sharpest tool in the shed. Yaz and the others are able to consistently outwit and outfight them, them, and they're a bunch of absolute morons. I mean, can someone explain why the Cybermen are considered some of the most deadly enemies in Doctor Who? Because they seem kind of slow and dumb. They walk straight into ambushes without any tactical awareness, and they can be easily killed with small arms fire. Jesus, even Ryan the Plank manages to blow a bunch of them up. Also, I don't know why, but the script absolutely spunks all over Yaz for some reason. Graham even heaps so much praise on her, you'd think she'd just cured cancer, brought peace to the Middle East, and bagged him a hot date with Scarlett Johansson. And of course, the others are all dumb and ineffectual by comparison. Maybe they're just not diverse enough. So anyway, the Master uses a convenient shrink ray on arsehole Cyberman leader and takes command of all the other Cybermen. Then he puts the bodies of dead Time Lords inside their armour, thus revealing his diabolical scheme to create an army of Cyber Time Lords. This is real, this is happening. Actual professional writers came up with this. Then the Doctor impersonator gets a visit from stunningly diverse previous Doctor, and then she overloads the Matrix by remembering too much stuff. Fuck off, show. Then she has one last reunion with her fam, and honestly, the script does everything except have her and Yaz make out right there in the middle of the retardus. Then she goes to confront the Master with a bomb made out of the death particle. Wait, won't that kill everything in the universe? Nah, it'll be fine. Apparently, it'll just kill everyone on Gallifrey now. Why? Don't know. This script is like a drunk old man, blindly lurching from one desperately improvised plot fix to another, and honestly, it's absolutely hilarious to watch. It's physically impossible to become invested in this nonsense, because literally anything could happen at any moment to completely undermine the premise of a situation. So the Doctor impersonator marches in there with the bomb and threatens to blow everything up, and the Master's like, okay, do it. And she's like, nah. And he's like, oh, go on. You know, if you really want to blow up the universe, why don't you just release the death particle yourself, you dick? Why does the Doctor impersonator have to do it for you? Why are the Cyber Time Lords standing there doing nothing? What is the point in even using the death particle when everyone in this situation will just regenerate anyway? Why should the Doctor impersonator ever worry about dying when she can keep coming back to life forever? Why does nothing in this show make any fucking sense ever? Anyway, the pointless and totally contrived standoff gets broken when some old bedshitter shows up and takes the bomb from the Doctor impersonator. And I'm not kidding, the Master and everyone else just stands there allowing this to happen. Why don't you just fucking shoot them immediately, you absolute cheese and chutney sandwiches? I mean, is it me? Am I doing this wrong? Am I just not getting this show? Trying to review Doctor Who these days is like flirting with some kind of existential crisis. Like I'll tumble off into madness if I think about it too long. God help me, the bedshitter detonates the bomb, Gallifrey blows up and everyone dies, but the good guys escape in some spare retarduses and they all live happily ever after. But then a bunch of space rhinos show up and throw the Doctor impersonator in space jail and the episode ends. And that's it. That's the plot for The Timeless Children. Probably the last episode of Doctor Who that I'll ever watch. Trying to review this nonsensical bullshit is like trying to fight your way out of quicksand. The harder you try to escape, the more it pulls you down. Everything that was bad in previous episodes is even worse here. First up, there's the broken storyline, filled with plot holes so big you could almost fit Amy Schumer's arse through them, that pulls so many revelations and quick fixes out that it feels like it must have been written by Ryan Johnson. Then there's the usual phoned-in, amateur-hour performances from everyone involved, especially Jodie Whittaker, whose attempts to channel gravitas and inner darkness are like watching a toddler doing their best Bane impression. And of course, there's the usual overzealous BBC diversity casting. I love how virtually every previous incarnation of the Doctor and the Time Lords are now either female or non-white or both. It's become so trite and predictable at this point for the BBC to smack you over the head with this stuff that you can practically set your watch by it. Naturally, the women are all smart, tough, resourceful and natural leaders, and the men are all whiny, incompetent, cowardly, stupid and need to be told exactly what to do. See, it's funny because Graham can't get his helmet off. Let's laugh at the silly old man. Oh, Bradley Walsh, I don't know what they paid you to be in this show, but I hope it was worth it, my son. All of these things are bad enough, but they're pretty much par for the course with Doctor Who at this point. We know the show's creative team is a contradiction in terms. We know the actors either don't give a fuck or don't have any talent to begin with. We know the writers don't understand what made this show good and lack the ability to craft a decent story anyway, but it's the destruction of the show's canon that's the biggest sin here. Not content with ruining Doctor Who by presenting their own unique vision of it in the present, Chris Chibnall and the writing team now seem determined to sink their claws into the show's 57-year legacy as well. I got a real sense that they want to make a lasting mark on the entire Doctor Who franchise, not just the handful of seasons they've been given. Probably because they know they're living on borrowed time and everyone can't wait to get them out the fucking door. Just like with the dildo teddy bear that's been awkwardly photoshopped into your family albums, you can't even escape from Chibnall's influence by finding solace in past versions of the Doctor now. Whenever you look at William Hartnell playing the very first Doctor, somewhere in the back of your mind you'll know that people like this came before him. When you think of the mighty Time Lords of Gallifrey now, you'll know that they only came into being because of strong female explorer repeatedly murdering children. And it's just kind of depressing to see the work of so many talented, hard-working people being slowly undone and trampled on by their unworthy successors. People who were chosen for the job because they spouted the correct politics, or fit the correct demographics, or toed the correct line. People who probably wouldn't even be working in the industry if it wasn't for the extremely accommodating hiring practices at the BBC.
Sheer fucking hubris.
You know, one of the virtues of living in today's world is being able to sit back and watch the wholesale destruction of every science fiction franchise we used to know and love. In some cases, it was down to greed and incompetence on the part of the studios, trying to squeeze more money from shows and movies that ran creatively dry decades ago. In others, the aggressive pushing of agendas and politics at the expense of good storytelling ultimately killed the fun and turned people away, while in others still, the lack of creative new ideas led to uninspiring retreads of previous ground, dressed up in fast-paced scripts and superficially flashy visuals. But Doctor Who is one of those rare instances that manages to combine all three into a perfect storm of shittiness. The decision to cast a female Doctor was a bold one that could have paid off in the long run, if only the showrunners had had the common sense and humility to handle the change with sensitivity and respect. They could have proven their detractors wrong by hiring the very best writers they could find, and focusing all their energy on producing fun, engaging adventures that everyone could enjoy. Instead, they played right into the hands of all those critics who claimed they were going to spoil the fun for everyone. They did exactly what people feared they would do, turning a quirky, beloved character into a preachy, annoying, judgmental busybody, hidden beneath a thin veneer of eccentricity and social awkwardness. There's an almost tangible sense of hostility and mean-spiritedness hanging around this show now, like it kind of knows that people hate it, and it's just sticking around as long as possible to spite them. But go it must, because most of its audience already has. And to be honest, I'm one of them. This will be the final Doctor Who review I do, because honestly, this show is simply not worth my time any longer. Or yours. So with that in mind, let me offer a few parting words to Chris Chibnall and his buddies. I hope you're proud of yourselves. I hope the destruction of one of the most popular and enduring TV shows in British history was a price you were willing to pay. Because when it's all over and you look back on your legacy of failure, you'll realise that all you really did was prove every single one of your critics absolutely right. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.